Hi, how are you, Jocelyn?
I'm good, how are you?
Very good.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
It's nice to see you again. So I want to start by reminding you that today we're actually here for a fictional session. Just knowing that our situation is fictional and making sure that you're aware that you're being recorded and that I'm going to be graded on our interaction today.
Yes, I'm aware.
Is that okay with you?
Yep.
Great. So, you came to see me a little while ago looking for some help with your addiction recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time you had recently detoxed from opiates and were feeling okay about certain parts of your recovery and really struggling with some other parts. So we've been looking at a little bit of talk therapy, but also using some DBT skills training. So I just want to check in a little bit around how you're doing with some of those pieces. Is that all right?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Great. So how is some of the mindfulness practice going? Have you been doing a daily meditation at all?
Yeah, I have been. I just actually went out and picked up this cool little device called Muse. It makes it pretty easy to meditate. I can't do it for very long at the moment. It seems difficult to keep focused, but I do notice a little bit of improvement actually.
Great, yeah. And just the daily practice of that is really going to help you be able to kind of kick in those mindfulness skills when you're experiencing maybe a more emotional or stressful situation. So even if it doesn't feel like it's helping in the moment, it really is helping train your brain.
Yeah, when you suggested meditation, you kind of said that at our last session that it's like a muscle that needs to be worked out, and it just takes more and more time before it gets stronger and stronger in practice.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. I'm glad that that's working for you. We had been talking a little bit about the distress tolerance, but you were sort of feeling like your cravings had been under control, and even though you've had ups and downs, you weren't feeling really strongly about using. Is that still accurate, or how are your cravings going?
Yeah, my cravings have diminished. Every day that goes by, it seems to be generally easier. Obviously, in times of distress, it seems to be a bit more difficult to remember, but yeah, overall I would say you're correct in saying that it is decreasing.
Okay, yeah. So we still have a little bit of work to do around those skills, and we'll continue on, but it seemed like a big priority was really emotional regulation, that you were finding yourself having some pretty unpredictable mood swings and strong feelings kind of coming up, and then having trouble maybe managing some of the consequences of those feelings.
Yeah. Actually, especially at work.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So we did talk about you using the emotion diary. I see you came in with your
I did.
your paperwork there.
Yep.
Were you able to kind of use the exercise a little bit throughout the week?
Well, yeah, just like I was just saying, had a few things, but one incident that kind of stuck out at work, where I got to use the tools here, or rather, I got to use this sheet.
Okay. Do you want to maybe share a little bit with me about the situation and kind of how you filled out the diary?
Yeah. So I'll just give you a brief overview, just a quick snapshot of what happened. So I'm a construction worker, and my foreman asked me to go out to a job site, but I couldn't stay late, so I had some other people, I asked other people if they could stay or if they were willing to stay. While I was talking to them, my foreman kind of gave me the gears in front of them about not being at the job site, even though I was doing what I thought was correct, and he used a tone and kind of centered me out in front of the guys, and I just got very angry. And I there were chairs around. I pushed a chair in, and it toppled over. So I slammed the chair,
Okay.
and everybody was kind of on eggshells,
Mhm.
just because of the situation. And then after I got thinking, oh man, I don't like how I acted, but it just seems so quick. Like I just can't really control it.
Okay.
But anyways, I wrote down.
Yeah, let's have a look at how you kind of went through the sheet there.
So the emotion name,
Mhm.
anger.
Mhm.
So I got very angry.
Okay.
It says motivate. What did my emotion motivate me to do?
Mhm.
It basically my goal was to communicate how upset I was, my dissatisfaction with my foreman's interaction.
Okay.
How was my emotion expressed to others? Well, yeah, I raised my voice, I wrote, and then like I said, I shoved my chair in and kind of made a scene that way.
It was obvious to them that you were angry.
Oh, yeah, my body language was bad. Like, for instance, I wrote down that I was stomping and storming around, and
Mhm.
I just acting like a child, I guess. So what message did my emotion express to others? I wrote down that dissatisfaction towards my boss, and anger.
Mhm. Okay.
What was the effect of my emotion on others? Like I said, kind of people kind of quieted down, gave me space, they were unsure of how I was gonna react. They didn't know, like the next day when I came into work, because it happened at the very end of the day. They didn't know how I was gonna come into work. They didn't know if I was still gonna be angry. So it just kind of put people on guard.
Okay. Mhm.
So what was my emotion saying to me?
Mhm.
Basically, it was saying that he's disrespecting me. I wanted to get a hold of the situation, because I felt I was out of control.
Mhm.
He questioned my integrity,
Mhm.
and it just seemed like he didn't care about my safety. In construction, you don't just walk into a live work zone, and you certainly don't put people that don't know what's going to happen into that work zone.
Right.
So there was a bit of miscommunication there, but
some serious issues that you were trying to.
Again, safety is a top priority. If somebody
Mhm.
gets hurt, it's unacceptable. And finally, how did I check the facts? Well, I just know that my foreman doesn't normally talk like that, so he wasn't acting the way he normally would either. So
Okay.
it kind of raised the question that is he always like this? Is this something that's just kind of out of the blue for him as well?
Mhm.
But that's what I wrote down
Right.
in my emotion diary.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for doing the exercise. I know that sometimes those things can be hard to stick to throughout the week.
Yeah, it was, but
Yeah, but it seems like you're pretty invested in figuring some of this stuff out. So, I guess a couple of things to go through. I do notice when you were kind of talking about what your body language would have conveyed to other people in the room, that you referenced it as sort of like bad body language in terms of the anger part. And I get what you're saying, because it sounds like you're worried that shoving the chair and stuff had an impact on other people where they were kind of unsure. But I also kind of want to remind you that there's not really bad emotions. Like, you started out the form talking about, like, you're in the diary that you were angry, but it did serve a purpose, that your anger was letting you know that you had something that you needed to communicate, right? So
yeah.
I guess that's one of those areas where I would just say, be a little bit gentle with yourself, and know that it's okay for the emotions to come up, but what we're here to work on a little bit is not letting them get away from you
All right.
the way that we did, right?
Yeah.
So, in terms of how the situation played out, it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you had a pretty legitimate issue with your safety and a pretty serious concern about the way that your foreman handled that.
Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry. Keep going.
But then in terms of your feeling emotional, you were able to kind of get angry, push the chair in, but maybe not ultimately get to really address the problem the way that you wanted
Yeah,
to.
I agree. That's pretty much exactly what happened.
Yeah. So this is sort of one of those areas where maybe we could say how, you know, your emotional regulation is affecting some of your interpersonal interactions with other people, right? And being effective in being able to interact with people the way that you know, to get to a means to an end. So,
Yeah, because I can't just keep going through, like, you lose your cool, I'm gonna lose respect with all of my fellow workers
right.
and my boss.
And then ultimately not get the things that you want out of
Yeah.
those relationships, right?
Yeah.
So one of the tools that we do use in terms of the interpersonal relations is a bit of an acronym, and you know, we've already kind of gone through a few of these things, so you're familiar with using the acronyms. There's maybe a few too many, but the one that I'm thinking about today is the Dear Man. So that's dear, like you're writing a letter, sort of DEAR. But we can, if you're all right with it, go through sort of each of those techniques, and it would maybe kind of give you a way of looking at the scenario a little bit differently and getting to use your emotion to actually get the outcome that you were looking for.
Perfect. Let's get started.
Okay, so the first thing that we would do is well, describe. That's the first dear. You don't always have to do that because sometimes people are pretty aware of the situation that's going on. But in this particular case, maybe your foreman wasn't really sure why you were angry. So we'd want to look for you to find some ways right away to let him know what was actually up.
Okay.
You, right?
Yeah.
So in this situation, without the facts, it's you had some pretty clear reasons why you weren't in the work area.
Right.
And you needed to be able to explain those things to him. So describing, if you can remember, that's the first thing that needs to happen. Explaining some of those things, right?
Okay.
The next piece would be expressing the feelings that are
Right.
coming along with that. So what would you say, like, so in the moment, if you were able to explain to him what the actual situation was and you were feeling angry, how might you be able to express the feelings about the situation itself?
Yeah, so looking back on it, obviously hindsight's 20/20. I would have just exactly said, like what I had written down, was, I guess what the emotion was saying to me part. It kind of really says a lot with, you know, I felt like he was disrespecting me, so what I could have done was saying, look, I don't feel like we're communicating very well. Just because obviously there was no communication. Maybe he wasn't aware of the safety. Maybe he actually needed to take a step back and realize like there's no rush, and obviously safety comes first. So communicating that in a proper tone probably would have, I guess now that you bring it up, probably would have gotten a lot more respect and would have got my point across a lot more effectively than doing what I did.
Well, again, that's what we're here to learn right now, right?
Yeah.
So, kind of doing the exercise allows you to pick that apart and see what you really were looking for in that situation. So describing to him, like, this is the reason that I was in the area or in the unit or not in the unit. And the other piece is, like, you're calling me out in front of these other people. Makes me feel kind of uncomfortable when you don't even have the full story. So you're expressing what you're feeling. So the next step is the A would be to assert and letting him know what you want. So in this particular case, it sounds like you were taking an issue with the way that he was addressing the
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
And so how would you kind of maybe explain to him if he were here what you would prefer to see him do differently, or what you want?
I think we just kind of went over the same thing as the last
Mhm.
point, was just to actually more directly explain what I was feeling
Mhm.
in the moment, rather than
Yeah.
using, rather than boiling over, maybe taking a second and taking a breath before.
Yeah, but even to
Okay.
assert to your foreman sort of, you know, maybe that it makes like you get upset when your
Oh, yes.
integrity is
Yeah.
questioned, when it's like, sounds like you kind of had a legitimate reason and
Right.
you might have made an assumption.
Hey, that's
Or,
good.
it also sounds like you were upset by the fact that he maybe had that conversation in front of other people, so maybe you could assert that you feel like it's important to you, that if he does have a problem, because someday he may have a legitimate problem with you, right? Where maybe you need to correct your behavior, and that maybe you wanna see those things done, in private.
Okay,
Is that fair?
that sounds good.
Alright, and so reinforcing is the R, so this is just one of the ways that you can, it's the same thing that backing up the asserting, that you can reinforce somebody else's positive behavior, the behavior that you're looking for, even in asking for it. So you could say, you know, that you would respond better if you were to have that, you know, if you have this conversation with me in private, that I know I'd be a lot more receptive and
True.
wouldn't really boil over, right? So you're kind of reinforcing that it makes it more desirable for him to do it that way too.
Yep.
And then staying mindful. So this is a piece like during the conversation itself where you'd want to see some of those muscles like you were talking
Yeah,
about.
I think
kind
that's
of
where I
kick
need
in.
the most work,
Mhm.
is the mindfulness.
Yeah, so in terms of the being mindful in that scenario, we're really just looking for you to stay with the actual problem instead of getting carried away with the emotion. And
Okay,
if that means one of the techniques we can use here is like the broken record, where you're really just repeating to him what it is that you're looking for.
okay,
And if you're finding that you're getting a lot of excuses and things coming your way that are maybe have the potential to get you upset again, you just want to ignore those pieces.
just stick to the facts.
Sticking to the facts that you can ignore, like, you know, well, last week you did this and whatever.
Yeah,
I'm just looking for
the
you
one
to
situation.
talk to me about these things. Yeah,
Okay,
and going
yeah,
back
that
to your
makes
broken
sense.
record. One of the other ones here is appear confident. I don't, in the short time I've known you, feel like you have an issue appearing confident most of the time, but just knowing that you're using, you know, a clear voice and making eye contact and those pieces that you're looking for in terms of mutual respect as well can be important.
Okay, very good.
And the last piece is always negotiating, and that just means that you are willing to give and get, like knowing that you're gonna speak your piece and you know, try to get what you're looking for, but sometimes we need you to have a little bit of compromise on those pieces too.
Okay,
Does that sound fair?
yeah,
So, maybe this is a tool that we can look at some different ways that we can be practicing over the next little while, cause it is kind of a long acronym there. We
well,
might
it's
have
pretty
to-
easy to remember, dear
Mhm.
men,
Mhm.
dear John, dear man.
Okay, great. Well, I think that maybe we're gonna wrap up for now,
Okay,
and we'll see you next week.
thank you,
Thanks.
appreciate it.